would like to take this opportunity to thank the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid for endorsing this event. And they have a table set outside, so probably at the end of this talk, feel free to go and take a look at the tables that are set outside.
$10. $10 or pay what you can. $10 or pay what you can. You can totally just pay what you can. This is a large. You want a large?
George Galloway Canadian speaking tour that visited 11 cities in November 2010. Tonight's meeting is very special, I think, to all of us. With everything that's transpired across the Arab world, I know that myself being of Arab origin, it touched me very deeply, and I think everybody here, the revolutions and the start of the revolution and the struggles of the people, I think has touched everybody. There's much for us to celebrate, there's much for us to hope for, there's much for us to learn and to inspire to, but there's also a lot for us to discuss. Tonight we are lucky to have with us a longtime friend and ally of Canada's peace and justice movement. We are very pleased to welcome back to Toronto, George Galloway. Without any further ado, please join me in welcoming once again Mr. George Galloway to Toronto.
Brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, Assalamu alaikum, peace be on all of you. My goodness, when Lenin said that there were decades when nothing happens, but weeks when decades happen, we had this year in mind. Cast your mind back. Just 14 months ago, myself and my comrade Ron Mackay, on our re-emergence from besieged Gaza, where we had once again broken the illegal siege on the people there, we were arrested by the goons of somebody you may remember called Hosni Mubarak. They bundled us into a van and sped towards the airport, where they confined us, even following us to the restroom, as you folks oddly describe it. We got no rest from them. And at the door of the aircraft, outstepped a factotum from the foreign ministry of Mubarak's regime and declared that I was henceforth persona non grata, which means a person without status, that I was being deported from Egypt, and that I would not be allowed to return ever. He added, ever. I told the man, I felt a little guilty afterwards because he was only the messenger. I said, the day will come when the real persona non grata in Egypt is the gangster for whom you work, Hosni Mubarak, who will, if he's lucky, flee the country with his billions, leaving people like you to face the music, face the wrath of the Egyptian people, the great people of the greatest of all Arab countries. He looked a little shamefaced, I like to think, but he was, as they said on another occasion, merely doing his duty. And so it seemed. I was banned from Egypt forever. But of course, the day came even quicker than the most optimistic of us could have expected when this regime was swept away, when Mubarak's assets were frozen, having been counted at the last count at more than $80 billion. Not a bad salary for President of the Republic of Egypt for 30 years. Of course, the banks who froze his assets were happy to bank his assets until a few weeks before, and the governments that belatedly clucked about his tyranny, bankrolled and buttressed and armed and supported in every way that dictatorship almost until the final hours of it. So things change fast when they begin to change. Cast your mind back, the same 14 months, I was banned from Canada. Forever. 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 I was banned from Kennedy, from Jason Kenney, forever. Now Jason Kenney seems to be in a bit of trouble. I mention it not to take what the Germans call Schadenfreude, pleasure in the discomfiture of others, but merely to make the point that all things must pass, all tyrants must pass, and let's hope Jason Kenney passes very soon. And yesterday, and the day before, I was in Calgary, which is the constituency of the said Jason Kenney, where people turn out in their hundreds, many, many hundreds, to hear me speak, and where we launched on Saturday night Viva Palestina Canada, which will soon become a national organization, but will forever be linked with Jason Kenney's backyard. You may think I'm rubbing it in, but that's the sort of guy I am. And I can tell you today that the finest lawyers in Canada have begun my legal action against Jason Kenney and his factotum. We will sue them for millions of dollars.
Yes.
And every cent that we get will be spent here in Canada building an even stronger anti-war movement. It's bliss for someone like me to be alive this year of revolutions. For 35 years or more, I have worked, dreamed, prayed, besieged the Arab masses from the Atlantic Ocean to the Persian Gulf, from Morocco to Bahrain, to rise up and overthrow the dictatorships placed upon them and kept upon them, mainly by Western countries. Because I believed that the Arabs would never fulfill the enormous potential that they have, which is mind-boggling. Think of that landmass from Morocco to Bahrain, all that sea, all that ocean, the ocean of petrol and gas, 350 million people speaking one language. In the European Union, we speak 300. In the Arab lands, one language, more or less, one religion, one God, one culture. This is a potential superpower which ought to be vital in every international arena and issue, but which is instead a basket case of ineffectual, pathetic inability to even put bread on the table of the people of their countries. And there are some things which surprise even me. I learned just in the last couple of weeks that Yemen is the poorest country in the world. How can that be? How can an Arab Muslim country next door to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, how could that country be the poorest country in the world? What kind of Islam, what kind of Arabism is that?
Shame.
It is indeed a shame. In Egypt, half of the people, that's 40 million people, therefore, 40 million. What's the population of Canada? 25? 25 million of you. 40 million Egyptians are living on less than $2 a day. Not knowing if there's food tomorrow, if there's shelter tomorrow. This has been the reality for so many Arab countries. But, as those conscious of nuclear physics will know, when a critical mass has been achieved, a chain reaction, a nuclear explosion will follow. And that critical mass turned out to have been achieved when a young man in Tunisia, of all places, set fire to himself in an act of self-immolation which turned out to be the spark which burned down the dictatorships of the Arab world. His name, Abu Aziza, will live forever, and the pioneering way in which the Tunisian people brought down their tyrant in what was, even by Arab world standards, one of the grimmest police states in the region. The way in which they were not fooled that just by the president running away, that meant that their job was done. Who returned in their hundreds of thousands again and again and again to the streets and the squares of Tunisia, until one by one, the ministers of the previous dictatorship fell on their swords and left the public stage. And last week, the RCD, the dictatorship party of Tunisia, was dissolved by a decision of the High Court of Tunisia. It was all powerful. Only months, less than 3 months ago, less than 12 weeks ago, it was all powerful, and now it no longer exists. This is what democracy looks like. And of course, this democratic spring spread to the greatest of all the Arab countries. And again, the Egyptian masses in their millions, they struggled might and main until this 30-year pharaoh, phony, fake, tin pot pharaoh, was removed from the scene, fleeing with his ill-gotten gains to we know not where. Maybe Israel. After all he did for them, it's probably the least they could do for him. But his assets now frozen. The police seeking to interview him about how he and his family garnered this extraordinary wealth. The son, Gamal, who until 9 weeks ago was a shoo-in, a cert, to be the next president of Egypt, giving us another 30 or 40 years of Mubarak dynasty, will be lucky to escape imprisonment or worse at the hands of the Egyptian people. and very soon